Barcelona in the first 2 months of the 2023-2024 season has surprised fans with its attractive football, its comebacks, and its results. With more than 25 goals scored and 0 losses in all competitions, especially after their 5-0 win against Royal Antwerp. Fans are starting to wonder if this Barcelona team has what it gets to win the Champions League this season, or at least to reach more advanced stages of the competition like the quarterfinal or even the semi-final compared to the last previous seasons when Barcelona finished third in the group stages and was booted to the Europa League. Why is it important for Barcelona to reach advanced stages of the UCL? Well, to get a chance at qualifying to the 2025 Club World Cup, held in the United States of America. So in this video I'll be reviewing Barca's last few games, talking about Xavi's tactics, players, the positives, the negatives, what they can improve on a group level, Barca's overall potential this season, and realistically what fans can expect in the Champions League versus teams like Manchester City and Bayern Munich. Barcelona hasn't lost a single game this season, obviously not including their friendly games in the last July versus Arsenal, because those are just friendlies and we only care about official games, right? In the first 4 games of the season, Barcelona has struggled a bit to convert chances and break the deadlock. Against Getafe, a negative draw. That could be attributed to the referee's bad decisions and Barcelona being outnumbered after Rafinha's red card in the first half, which made them play with only 10 men for 20 minutes until Getafe got a red card too. Versus Cádiz, they struggled to convert good chances, and if it wasn't for Ter Stegen's one-on-one saves, Cádiz would have tightened up the defense, which would have prevented Pedri and Ferran to score in the last 10 minutes. Versus Villarreal, another very tough opponent on his grounds. A game which showed us that the team still struggles to concede goals after being 2-0 up. This match was also a good showcase on Barcelona's mentality this season that tries to win till their last breath and manages to do so after being led by 3-2 in the 50th minute, then flipping the table in the last 20-ish minutes and scoring the tie and the winning goal back-to-back in just 3 minutes. Versus Osasuna, it's the same thing even with injuries. Lewandowski was able to score the winning goal in the 86th minute to snatch 3 much-needed points from Pamplona. And since the miraculous job by Joan Laporta in the last hours of the summer transfer window, signing both Joao Felix and Joao Cancelo, 2 very much-needed profiles will give depth and more quality to the squad. We are talking about players who can impact Barcelona positively, and so they did. In just their first 2 games as starters, Barcelona scored 10 goals and conceded none. Now with a total of 7 games, 5 wins and 2 draws, 19 goals scored and 6 conceded, Barcelona has more than doubled their goal-scoring prowess, with both Joaos contributing in 8 goals already. Barcelona are looking more confident, creating more chances and showing glimpses of this group potentially playing the Barca way in order to bring stability and glory back to this previously glorious club. This shows that having quality players is important to execute your game plan. Without a deep squad consistent of good players, you can't compete on different fronts like the Champions League. And now, without further ado, let's talk about Barcelona's lineups, tactics and players since the game versus Real Betis, and talk about the positives and the negatives of this team and what to expect if they ever face stronger teams in the Champions League. Barcelona is currently playing its historically preferred 4-3-3 formation, or at least starting games in a 4-3-3 formation, and then depending on the result and their opponent, they make slight changes. Against Celta Vigo, after being led by 1 goal at home, not creating enough goal-scoring chances, and Celta Vigo being too deadly on counters, Xavi had to do adjustments and substitutions that changed the course of the game to the better. So from a 4-3-3 formation to a 3-4-3 formation. Subbing Alonso, who had trouble backtracking against counters, with Balde, who has more pace and better defensive capabilities for an opponent like Celta Vigo. Subbing Ferran, who was barely noticeable in the match, for Rafinha, to bring much needed intensity in the last 25 minutes of the game. And finally including Lamine Yamal from the beginning of the second half to bring width to the team and to spread Celta Vigo's defense to make more space for runs, which we saw in the second goal scored by Lewandowski from a great pass by Cancelo, who received the ball from Rafinha, who saw the space behind defenders. What a great 3-goal comeback for Barcelona. This game was a great opportunity for Xavi and his players to learn valuable lessons on what to expect in the future when playing versus teams who play a very defensive style of football and mostly use counters as their primary attacking tool. Mallorca did the same thing, and they got to draw versus Barcelona. And obviously teams like Atletico Madrid will also be doing the same thing versus Barcelona. Their game versus Real Madrid is a perfect example. 3 goals from 3 deadly counters, and they are much more proficient at this playstyle than mid or bottom table teams like Celta Vigo. Different European sides are doing the same thing. Wolverhampton dropped to 10 men in the back after leading the score, and they somehow managed to win over the Citizens with only 3 shots attempted in the whole game. These are the kind of teams that Barca will struggle with this season. That's why Xavi should have a game plan specifically for these scenarios, beginning with his starting 11 and by not waiting until the second half to make changes, even though luckily he is very fast at making impactful changes, which is a great thing. Teams that play football like Real Betis and Royal Antwerp are a walk in the park for Barcelona, especially at home, because they also like to hold on to the ball and try their chance against a stronger team, even if they fail. If we go back to Guardiola's time when he coached Barcelona, they always had a hard time against teams that parked the bus or the ones who played dirty football. They rarely suffered against teams that played attacking football. For example, when Mourinho coached Real Madrid between summer 2010 till summer 2013, in his first Clásico game he tried playing attacking football, thinking that he had the players or the tactics to rival Barcelona. Subsequently, Barca gave his team an unforgettable football lesson, and logically per Mourinho's antics, he went back to his preferred style, focusing on defensive and dirty tactics versus Barcelona. This return to normality gave good results to Real Madrid. In the same year, they played 4 more games, 3 goals scored and only 4 goals conceded, 1 loss, 2 draws, and an important win to seal the Copa del Rey title. So in the first leg of La Liga from fixture 1 to fixture 19, Xavi has to take notes on how each team plays against them, and from what he learned, he'll use formations according to their play style in the second part of La Liga from fixture 20 to 38. Obviously, some teams will change their play style depending if it's a home or away game. So with all this in mind, these 2 formations will probably be the go-to for Xavi. The first one, a 4-3-3 formation against teams that play attacking football. Ter Stegen as goalie. In defense, it depends on who is in form. Currently and right now, the center-back duo of Christensen and Koundé. But I do think Araujo will be getting his place back in the starting lineup after his good performance versus Porto in the Champions League recently. At right back, João Cancelo. It's a no-brainer. At left back, it can be either Alonso or Balde in this scenario. While Alonso excels at providing more offensive options to Barcelona, he struggles to track back in time versus teams like Celta Vigo who play on counterattacks. Balde is the opposite. His pace and defensive prowess is great against counters, but he has no end product and struggles to provide decent through balls or crosses to the box. Now, if no one is injured, I think Barca's best midfield should be composed of Frenkie de Jong, Pedri and Gavi. Pedri and de Jong are self-explanatory. When one of them or both of them are absent, the team struggles to play good football and to create good goal-scoring chances. However, Gavi is a surprise. I never expected from the 19-year-old to become such an integral part of the team. I'd even say he might become indispensable in the near future. Great at ball recoveries, great passer, chance creator, can score goals, hard to press, smart with his fouls, kinda, and above all, a project of a new leader who motivates his teammates, brings intensity and a winner's mentality to the team, something the club hasn't seen since Carles Puyol's retirement. His only problem is him being a yellow card magnet. He commits too many tactical fouls. That's why his name starts with a G. Avi comes from Xavi, and the G comes from Gattuso. So he is 75% like Xavi and 25% like Gattuso. Funny. As for İlkay Gündoğan, I think Barcelona might not be utilizing him correctly because he's not really doing much to the team. Don't get me wrong, he's doing fine. He's the leading assist provider right now, but I expected much more from him. I guess playing as a box-to-box player in a 4-3-3 formation doesn't bring out the full potential of Gündoğan, and after doing some research, it looks like he performs better as a central midfielder. So as of right now, him and Gavi will fight over the starting position, and currently Gündoğan is winning this battle because Gavi's recklessness with fouls will throttle his progression this season. As for the attack, the Tridente, we have Rafinha, João Felix and Lewandowski. Lewandowski is the only player who can score more than 20 goals in the season, so it's a no-brainer. Ferran Torres on the bench, even though he scored that free kick and his goal versus Porto, I still don't think he should be a starter over Rafinha, who brings so much quality and unpredictability to Barcelona's predictable playstyle, mainly attempting shots from long range, a basic aspect of the game that Barcelona struggled with for years. Of course, I'm not including Messi in this discussion. And also, Rafinha is a better passer than Ferran Torres. João Felix is the right man for the left wing. great at playing behind Lewandowski to attract defenders towards him to open space to the other attackers. His only problem is that he loses possession a bit too much with an average of 12 per game, which is actually not a lot for a winger, but it's still a bit too much overall. I think he just attempts too many unnecessary dribbles with only a 33 success rate in all competitions this season. Just play simple, Felix. Pass the ball and move. As for Lamine Yamal, at 16 years of age, he can create, dribble, find his way out from tight situations and impact the results of the match. The only worry I have with him is that he's way too young to be playing professional first-team football, as it might get to his head. In the past, we have seen the examples of Munir and Ansu Fati. Being a great teenager doesn't guarantee success in the long term. I just hope he doesn't get a bad injury and that he paces himself to avoid such thing. Alright, this was the typical Barcelona formation. Now to the second one, which will be for defensive teams. So because Barcelona will have possession of the ball for 70% of the match, the lineup I'm going to show right now will only be when Barca has possession and not when they are defending. So when playing against a deep block, aka parking the bus, and also to stop deadly counters, as we've seen versus Celta Vigo, Barca has to play with either a 3-2-4-1 formation or a 3-4-3 formation. They are basically the same thing, to be honest. 3 at the back, Koundé, Christensen or Araujo, and probably Balde. Then Frenkie de Jong and Cancelo, who likes to receive the ball as often as possible. Then Felix on the left side, Gavi, Pedri in the middle, Rafinha on the right side, and finally Lewandowski in the front. And when defending, they fold into a 4-5-1 formation. Unlike what some fans and some big accounts say on social media, Barcelona's identity is not a 4-3-3 formation. It actually lies with these three principles: dominating ball possession, creating and attempting as many chances on goal, and finally playing amazing football. This is what Barcelona is. Not a silly 4-3-3 formation, because if we have to go back 10 plus years ago, when Barca peaked in success and the type of football they played, on paper it was a 4-3-3 formation. But in reality, inside the pitch, it was more of a 4-1-3-2 or even a 4-3-1-2 formation. Messi played 3 to 4 seasons as a false 9. Barca only really played a 4-3-3 formation during the MSN trio of Messi, Suarez and Neymar. Now let's move lineup discussions to the side and discuss what Barca should improve on a tactical level. One of the biggest problems the team has versus deep blocks or mid blocks is that Barcelona's midfielders can't consistently find good passes beyond the second third of the pitch. And I think the problem stems from the striker who rarely participates in build-up. I think Lewandowski or Ferran Torres has to drop more often to receive passes and to help his team progress the ball further into the opponent's pitch. Lewandowski makes an average of 19 to 20 total passes per game. Compared to the other strikers in Europe, it's actually a pretty good number. Haaland makes only about 11 to 12 passes on average. So he's already doing decently, but I expect him to do even better. He has to become much more involved in build-up. So by increasing your rate of dropping from the striker position to a more attacking midfield position, you give your team a numerical advantage. By outnumbering the opposing team in a specific area of the pitch, it makes it easier to find passes and harder for opponents to man-mark each player. This also invites defenders to leave their position, which in return creates spaces for the other attackers to make runs and receive passes towards the penalty box, because football is all about finding or creating space to exploit. An even bigger problem Barcelona faces is not attempting enough shots, especially in the first half, mainly because they need around 15 to 30 minutes to get on gear and warm up to then start making more attempts in the second half of the game. Versus Royal Antwerp, only 5 shots in the first half compared to 17 in the second half. Again, versus Royal Betis, only 5 shots in the first half compared to 12 in the second half. Against Sevilla, 7 shots in the first half versus 11 in the second half. Versus Real Mallorca, their first shot was in the 90th minute. Their second one was in the 39th minute. So only 2 shots in the first 39 minutes of the game. Same thing against Celta Vigo. Their first good attempt on goal was in the 23rd minute, with only 5 shots in the first half and 10 shots in the second half. Only their recent game versus Porto in the Champions League saw Barcelona have more attempts on goal in the first half. The problem is not that Barcelona consistently has more shots in the second half than the first half, no. The real problem is that Barcelona does not attempt enough shots per game, especially in the first half, to secure wins. Barcelona cares more about finding the best chance possible by maximizing their XG, which means they prefer to keep possession of the ball for as long as they find a good solution. And most of the time this doesn't work, mainly because in the first 30 to 45 minutes of the match, players still have the stamina to react to every move Barcelona makes. And that's one of the reasons why 40% of Barcelona's goals this season came in the last 20 minutes of the game. Funny thing is that Xavi fixed some of these issues in their game versus Granada. The team had 11 shots just in the first half, and they actually had like 5 to 6 attempts in the first 25 minutes of the game, without half of their starting lineup. Like, I'm seeing some decent improvements, to be honest. Football matches in general see more shots and goals in the last 10 minutes than any other period of the match. Shot supremacy is a concept that calculates the probability of a match's result by looking at the team with the most shots in any given time. And so they analyzed thousands of games, and the result was if Team A has more shots than Team B, it has a 59% chance of winning the game, 22% of drawing, and 19% of losing. This is why I think Barcelona has to change and adapt its game plan. In the first half, they have to attempt more shots. Every 5 minutes, there needs to be an attempt. You never know if the shot will get deflected and land on Lewandowski, who is in a good position to score. A shot can lead to a corner kick and maybe even a penalty if it hits someone's arm. At least you are keeping the opposing goalkeeper on his toes. So I think this should be Barcelona's game plan, mainly against defensive teams, of course. The first 15 to 25 minutes focus on having as many attempts as possible, which means that Barca has to find a way to move the ball faster. They got to start utilizing counter-attacks more efficiently and more often. I'm not saying they should stop having possession of the ball and that they should just shoot the ball aimlessly, no. I simply want them to attempt somewhere between 5 to 10 shots in the first 20 minutes and then slowly transition into caring more about ball possession. I also noticed that they attempt most of their first half shots in the last 5 minutes. And I think one of the many reasons behind this is that opposing defenders get tired from chasing the ball and they start committing mistakes like fouls, leaving gaps in the defense, etc., which leads to goals, of course. Now, their game plan in the second half depends on their result in the first half, and the team they're playing against, of course. Best case scenario, they are winning and they only need to keep possession and look for good opportunities in the second half. I think Barcelona plays their second halves way better, mainly because they are always in possession of the ball, and as I said a couple minutes ago, Barca scored 40% of their goals past the 70th minute mark due to the tiredness of the opposing defenders. See, possession-based football was way more effective back in the 2010s. A lot of attacking players had empty tanks around the 60th minute mark, and they had to be subbed off after chasing the ball versus a team like Barcelona, who racked up ball possession numbers way past 70%. But nowadays, instead of 3 subs only, teams can sub off up to 5 players. Defensive-minded teams have used this new law to their advantage, and gone are the days of exhausted midfielders and attackers. The football meta has changed, and Barcelona has to adapt their game plan. I'm being serious right now. Now, injuries are the biggest problem in sports, especially if it's your best players getting injured. In football, there's a thing called performance cost. By quantifying a player's contributions to the team, we can somehow predict how many points it can lose. If only a couple of their best players are injured for half a season, on average, the team is losing around 1 to 2 points. These are just predictions, because in reality, a team like Barcelona, with the economic crisis it has, can't afford the likes of Pedri, De Jong, Rafinha, and Lewandowski to be injured at the same time. Honestly, if Pedri and De Jong are absent in any UCL knockout game, the likes of Man City and Bayern Munich will have a field day against Barcelona. Xavi experimenting with new lineups could be the end of him. In La Liga versus Mallorca, he benched both informed Koundé and Christensen for Inigo Martinez and the recently recovered Araujo. Both of Inigo Martinez and Araujo have no chemistry. They haven't played any minutes together this season, and he decides to engage them together away from home. You have to be freaking kidding me. And of course, they both had a suboptimal performance, especially Inigo Martinez, who misplaced so many passes trying to find the right wing. And I'm pretty confident Barcelona could have won this game if either one of Koundé or Christensen was in the starting lineup. Now, we've come to the part of the video where we talk about Barcelona's potential foes in the Champions League. Manchester City is not unbeatable this season, unlike Barcelona who hasn't lost yet. Well, at least at the time of writing this video. So I've watched many of Man City's games this season. They are more proactive than Barcelona to say the least. On several occasions they attempted more than 10 shots in the first half, all of this without the services of their playmaker Kevin De Bruyne. According to football analysts, City's 4-2-3-1 formation counters Barcelona's typical 4-3-3 formation, mainly because a midfield of 5 players overwhelms that of 3 players. It's one of the reasons Real Madrid cracked and lost 4-0 last season. Especially if your midfielders are old, to win with a 4-3-3 formation, the midfielders have to be individually on a superior level. On the other hand, Barcelona does have younger midfielders with better on-the-ball capabilities. It's interesting how a lot of teams play with a 4-2-3-1 formation. Bayern Munich is one of them. This team is a nightmare for Barcelona these last seasons. And this formation seems to be the most used and one of the most effective ones in the current football meta. I've made a lot of research on how to counter this formation. Plenty of options were thrown at me, the typical 4-4-2, which doesn't suit Barcelona, fighting fire with fire, and using the 4-2-3-1 formation. Playing defensively with 5 at the back, 3 in the middle, and 2 in the attack is not an option for Barcelona, so the best way to do it is to flood the midfield. So either a 4-5-1 formation, which can be translated into a 4-2-3-1 formation, with both Frenkie and Gundogan as double pivots, Rafinha, Felix in the wings, and Pedri behind Lewandowski. It is a bit too soon predicting who can win. A lot can happen between the months of October and March. I remember how Barcelona was the biggest contender in 2018-2019 based on their performances the first half of the season, but they couldn't qualify to the final. They couldn't bring that quality back from the first half of the season to the months of March, April, and May. Real Madrid was a shadow of its former self in 2018, and they still managed to win it. It's a general recommendation to wait till the month of April to make any informed football prediction. You know what's the best way for Barcelona to have a shot at the big old ears this season? It's to stop giving a crap about the Copa del Rey. Unless you're playing the final or against Real Madrid, just field the second team for this tournament. Copa del Rey's importance has diminished in the last 5 years, mainly because Barcelona is the record winner of this silly tournament. If it was Real Madrid, you'd see the Spanish media talking about how amazing it is. But seriously, am I the only one to notice that domestic cups are just not cared about anymore? It's only the league and the Champions League nowadays. Barcelona should give it a rest. They should stop caring about winning the treble these next couple seasons, at least for these next couple seasons, and focus on qualifying to the Club World Cup. Because even if they don't win the Champions League, 8 more slots are available to the top 8 European teams who haven't won the Champions League between 2021 and 2024. Right now, Barca is ranked 13, and to be safe, they gotta reach the top 10 to qualify. And it's much more logical for the Barca brand to care about it than the Copa del Rey. Imagine a big Club World Cup with 32 teams without Barcelona. That would be tragic. Not only that, but economically the Club World Cup and the Champions League are much more profitable. Winning the Copa del Rey will earn you around $2 million at best. However, winning the Champions League will net you between $95 to $100 million. Just playing the group stages can earn you between $18 to $38 million, depending on your results. Do you now understand why every club in Europe wants to play in the biggest European stage? Seriously, Barcelona, stop trying to win more trebles. You've already won 2 of them. Oh my god, man. You don't have the players to do it, or even a deep squad to win it again. Give it a rest. Player fatigue is a real thing, especially when your medical staff and personal trainers can't keep players injury-free. Maybe it's time to say goodbye to a useless Copa that drains too much energy from your players. I hope that Barcelona only cares about the league and the UCL this season. The quarterfinals is the least to be expected. Anything below it would be underachieving. If you are a football fan, consider to subscribe. With more subs, this channel gets closer to a consistent upload schedule. I'm also on Instagram if you are interested. Thanks for the likes and the comments. I hope you have a good week, and until next time, see ya!